Hello, and welcome back to our series where we are building a people and culture management system. This series is brought to you by Prairie HR Solutions. My name is Jake Finger, Principal Consultant here at Prairie HR Solutions. And in this video, I'd like to take this scatter plot chart that we created for our salary analysis. And what we're doing is comparing salary based by experience and identifying genders. And this is really for a gender disparity analysis. And I like to do some formatting and maybe some added functionality because right now, to keep it simple and to get it functional, we just use two genders. So, what I would like to do is add that third gender in there that we have, the non binary identifier, and give that a different color. And then maybe change this pink. This pink is really difficult to see. So, maybe we'll change that to red. So, we'll have like maybe red, blue, and I don't know, green. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And how we're going to do that is we're going to take our gender list here inside our compensation, and the other selection that we had was non-binary. So we can just fill this full a little bit. So now if we were to come back and refresh this, what's going to end up happening is going to go through and check to see if it's male. If it is, it's going to assign this point the color blue, and then it's going to check to see if it's female, and it's going to assign it pink currently. And then if it's neither male or female, then it's going to assign it that gray color. So let's just make sure this works. We should have some gray dots in here, and we do. Perfect. We have 3 of them. So now let's actually come back here and build in that extra row dot gender value. So what we can simply do here is row dot gender is strictly equal to non-binary, and then the value, if true, for that is going to be green. And of course, we can always change these colors. We can even use these as like hex or something like that, but we have that. And let's change this to red. That pink really is difficult to see. And then if it's not any 3 of these, then you have gray. So let's save this and see how that turns out. Make sure that it's working as intended, because this way we're able to actually expand. It is perfect. This way we're actually able to expand the data inside our chart here dynamically. So good. So now what I like to do is have a legend of some kind here, kind of explaining what these colors are. Because without this, you're like, well, wow, there's a lot of colors here, but I have no clue what they mean. So we want to give somewhat of a legend here. And we could use Google Charts legend. The problem is we're using 3 different columns on a scatter plot. So when you think of a scatter plot here, you have a series, the x-axis. Then you have another series, which is the y-axis. But what we're doing is we're actually having a third type of column or series here, and that's that gender piece. So it could get a little bit complex by trying to do a legend with more than 2 series when dealing with a scatter plot. So what I'm going to do instead, just to keep it simple, is I'm going to create our own div down here underneath to hold the legend, and then we will populate that dynamically from our code. So, and to show you how I'm going to do that, we'll come back over here to our code, and let's first create this div. And I think I'm going to have the legend underneath our chart here. And we're going to create a div. Typing away and not even on the screen. Create a div, And let's call this div, let's give it an ID of salary anally legend. And then we'll create a closing tag for that. Okay, so now in this div, I basically would like a line stating that this colored dot is male, and then another div section that says this dot colored this color is female, and so on. So how we can do that is we can create yet another div. We'll wrap these together, and then instead of just writing the text male, what we need is a span over on the left side. Span. So what we're actually going to do, get rid of this. So this is going to be male. So to show what this looks like now, you come back over here, refresh this. You'll see that this is where the legend is going to go. And that's fine, because what we'll do is we'll wrap this entire chart here in yet another div. But that'll come later. So this is where it's going to go. So we would like that dot right there to be on the left-hand side and colored appropriately. So to do that, we can actually create a span here. There we go. And what we need inside this span is essentially that dot. So now this dot, to make a dot like, put it in here in the right spot, like that, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can either use like an HTML entity. So and you can simply just type, I have it written down here. Let me look this up. Okay, this, and then that's the dot. Or if you're on Windows, Alt+7. And then Mac, I believe it's Option+8. But that's how you actually create the dot. So you could simply just grab this HTML entity and just put it directly in there. Or since I have it saved on a chart of all these icons, so I just grab it and slap it in there. But that is exactly what this is here. So you can do either or. Now our span isn't just going to be a normal span, because if we save this and then come back to our chart here, and then we'll refresh this, you'll see that it's going to create and populate that span. That dot is an integer. Oh, yes. That's right. So it's not forward slashes. We're working in HTML. But you'll see that you have the dot and then the male. Now what we want to do with this dot is style it with a color. So let's make this a comment correctly. So we want to style this span here as a color. So what we can do is we can give it a style, and then that style is going to be maybe a color, and the color for the male is going to be blue. So that should take care of our male. So now what we're going to need to do is create another. And this one is going to be red. And this is going to be female. And then we'll need another one that is going to be, what color was our third one? Green. Green and non-binary. Okay, so now we have this. So now what we need to do is essentially assign the color dynamically, and we've done that with our, scroll up here, we've done that with our chart code here. We've done that with this piece right here. So now what we can do is, since we are using, the reason why we used our color down here, right here, is because we're calling that variable. And since we're going to be calling that variable, we want to run this all as a, I guess you can call it a function string. So we're going to need those backticks, the literal ticks here. So let's find where our draw chart is. So we want to draw the chart, and then we want to create that legend. So let's add a comment here. We'll do add our custom legend to the bottom. Let's just say custom legend. I have a feeling that we're going to move this legend. And what we're going to want to do is create ourselves a container of sorts to contain that legend. So we'll just call this legend container. And what this legend container is going to be is that document.get element by ID. And then it is going to be that salary anally legend div section. Okay, I need to go through and actually just make all these. I'll go through and make them all the same quotations. And I don't know why I got started. Oh, I remember why we got started with this. This is how Google created theirs. So we were copying it, just did it. I'll go through and make those all consistent. Now, what we're going to want to do with this legend container is we want to set not the value of this. So when we come over here and let's refresh this, we don't want to set the value of all this. What we're wanting to do is set the inner HTML because it's a div and we want to fill that div with our HTML and functional data. So what we want to do is take our legend container and set the inner HTML to, and we can come down here and simply grab all of this and put it right here. Now, when we run this, we don't want to just run it like this because, as you can see, everything's going to be red here, right? Because it's looking for HTML. So what we need to have happen here is our backticks. We need to put a backtick right there and a backtick right there. Let's move this over. So now what should happen is when we run this, it should come through and assign the appropriate color based on male blue dot, female red dot. So let's see if this works or I messed this up in my head. So let's see. You should get rid of that stuff too. Okay, so let's refresh this. Let's see how that works. Okay, our dots are fine. Okay, perfect. So now as you can see, the green's there. And then if we wanted to change a color, say we wanted to make this one yellow, we can come up here to our code. Assign this yellow, and then row gender here, yellow to make sure they match. And then what that should do is change everything as well. And there we go. Perfect. So now that we have this, what I would like to do is not necessarily have this in a line like this, and maybe change this font size a little bit to where it matches, this a little bit better. But I'd like to make this in a line, so to speak, to where it's not vertical, but it's more horizontal. So to do that, since we're using Bootstrap, what we can do is come down here, and inside our salary analogy legend, what we can do is give this a class of a row. And that should assign it that Bootstrap class, which indicates that it is a row. And what we can do with that, with each one of these divs, is assign it a column. So we would have 3 divs, and a row width within Bootstrap is actually 12. So if we divide this evenly by 12, we would get a column of 4. So let's see what the row actually, this class row did. Nada. Okay, so let's give this, let's actually do something different here. Let's think about where we're at, and let's do div class equals row. Here, you can always wrap it in another div. Column, let's go column 6 for now, just to, because this should set everything here into a column. Nope, this should be column 4. And then this div here should look something like this. Oh, this shouldn't be div, this should be column. So now what this is going to say is that this whole section right here is a column that takes up 4 rem of the row there. So what we actually want to do is create each one of these as its own separate column. Like so, and then we'll take this, copy, and do that. And then what we're also going to need to do is essentially the same thing right here. So let's just grab all of this and then test that out. Okay, so we grab this, and this is probably why it wasn't working before, because we were setting the inner HTML to that old piece. So what we need to do is let's just grab this whole row here, and then we'll come up and replace this with the new HTML that we want, and then save it. And then let's come back. Let's come back here to our page here and refresh it. Okay, so that's rendering good. And okay, good. So now it's in its own row, but you'll see that it is taking up our entire space here. So the reason why it's taking up this entire space here is, if you think about what that div is actually under, it's not underneath this chart here. It's outside of this chart. So what we should do is actually what we can do is just set this a little bit differently, and we can do this the next episode, because the next episode what we're going to do is finish up formatting. We'll move these over, and what will probably end up happening here is I'll take these, put them up here on top, and then put this whole thing in a container, because this is obviously not going to be the only thing that we have on this page here. We also want to create a functionality to filter. So we want to know, say, this data for the entire finance division or the entire HR division or whatnot. So we want to create some filtering functionality, and we'll do that the next episode. And we'll also clean this up real quick in the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, please take care.